Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. If you're watching this video and it's Salah time, please pause it and go pray and come back when you're done. Please check out the description section of this video to support the channel. I was sent a podcast where a Christian gentleman named Theo Vaughn and a Jewish gentleman named Dave Smith sat down and had a very honest intellectual conversation. They spoke about not only the modern day turmoil in the Middle East, but also the historic oppression of Arab nations at the hands of America and Israel. Who better to speak about this than a Christian American and a Jewish American, as these days if a Muslim person exposes such things online, hordes of bigots slither out from the dark corners of the internet with their pitchforks ready to spew hatred and intolerance. Such is the culture in this very ignorant era of human history. Let's look at the first clip.
You're Jewish?
Yeah,
okay.
I am.
Are you Israeli too? Is that the same thing?
No. Israel's the nation. I have nothing to do with that.
Someone's Jewish, they're just means that they have family that's from Israel originally?
No, not even necessarily. So basically, a bunch of Jews went and started their own country in Israel in the 40s. But these were Jews from Europe. But lots of other Jews just didn't leave Europe or didn't leave America, and so they never had anything to do with Israel. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I start hearing about like Jewish, then I hear Zionist, and Zionist means...
It's become shorthand for someone who supports Israel.
Okay. Okay, so someone who supports the country Israel is Zionist. Anti-Defamation League, so it's like graffiti or whatever?
Yeah, well, not exactly. They're a league that was started by Jewish people, and it was kind of, at least at the beginning, I think, was to be fighting anti-Semitism. They've come to be an organization that will really try to go after and ruin anybody who's critical of Israel. One of the things that they were real upset about was that TikTok has just been dominated by images of like the Palestinian babies dying and stuff.
The kids, like people like begging for food and stuff like that. A lot of like the ICC when they tried to condemn Netanyahu, that was loose on there. It was real information. But
yes, that's right. They were furious about that because they, Israel is not too kind to their Palestinian neighbors.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking over there.
Oh yeah, this has been the worst thing that Israel's ever done to the Palestinians over the last year plus, but it's not like this is where it started.
The powers that be, if they exist, don't want a lot of this type of information out there.
Oh yeah,
and especially with Palestine.
Throughout all of history, there's just all this horrible shit. There's just slavery and wars and genocides and ethnic cleansing campaigns and all this. And every single point in history, there was someone there who would justify it and be like, no, we have to. We have, and we have reasons why it's okay to do this. And they bend over backward and twist themselves into pretzels to explain why they're the real victims and they really have to do this to these people because if they don't, then they do it to them. But it's all indefensible. You're like, you're just defending evil shit. And I feel the same way about Israel, man. To defend what they're doing to a group of people who are captive, who they've been occupying since 1967. They don't have a military. They don't have a government. They don't have an air force. They have no means of defending themselves. Yeah. And you're just destroying the place.
But you're not letting the news out. That's the thing, right? Yeah. You're not letting people get a fair take of what could potentially be going on there. You're doing everything you can to stop that. Right?
Well, they always do. The only thing that's different is that now it's actually a challenge for them to do that. But every war relies on lies, and every war relies on totally dehumanizing the enemy. Because if you can't do that, you're in a lot of trouble. If you leave just a little inch of humanity for those people, then immediately you're going to go, oh my God, what are we doing? Because if that was your brother's kid or your nephew, your son, you'd lose your mind about someone doing that to them.
I like how Theo Vaughn asked simple questions about the connection between Jewish people and Israel, as well as the difference between Jewish people and Zionists. Dave Smith, as a Jewish person himself, gave the correct and honest answer that Israel mainly consists of Jewish European immigrants and that Zionists believe in the separatist ethno-state of Israel. Theo Vaughn comes across as having a very sincere inquisitiveness, which is definitely a good thing. Dave was spot on when he informed Theo about the ADL, a prejudicial and biased group that covers up Israel's wrongdoing while hiding behind the guise of policing anti-Semitism. As you will have heard, there has been a lot of talk about the social media app TikTok being banned in the States due to the vast amount of videos being shared showing the realities of the persecution of the Palestinians, and in turn exposing Israel's war crimes, as Dave and Theo said. These two guys are objective, impartial, and compassionate human beings. They are able to look beyond a blind programmed tribal loyalty to a religion, a nation, or a race, and view things from a humane perspective. Theo described what is happening in Palestine as heartbreaking, which Dave agreed with, and also acknowledged that although over the past year it's been worse than ever, this did not start on October 7th, 2023. Both these gentlemen correctly identified the pattern of Israel's oppression throughout history. I would like to add that the common denominator that binds America and Israel is that both these nations consist of European colonizers that initially invaded a foreign land and stole it from the indigenous people. Dave described Israel as an evil occupying force that is holding defenseless Palestinian citizens captive whilst at the same time wiping them out. I couldn't agree more. Theo quite rightly called out Israel censoring journalists from reporting on the atrocities they are committing in Palestine. If that isn't an admission of guilt on Israel's part, I don't know what what is. In fact, Israel has eliminated hundreds of journalists and media workers in the last 15 months in a desperate attempt to suppress the truth to no avail. Dave was right on the money when he exposed how Palestinians have been dehumanized to the point where those that support Israel don't even see them as real people. I can attest to this. Whenever I post a picture of Palestinian children who've had their lives taken, I shockingly see comments from people making excuses to justify their deaths, or more disturbingly, making fun of them rather than expressing grief. These are kids, whether they be Muslim or Jewish, or Palestinian or Israeli, or black or white or whatever. If your first reaction to seeing a deceased child is not extreme sorrow rather than spewing propaganda, then you are demonic. Let's watch the next clip.
I'm not an anti-Israel guy. That Netanyahu guy, he gives me this vibe that it's evil, right? And it's not something I am making in my head. It's something that starts inside of me.
I mean, what he's doing to these people is like, it's the most inexcusable, just horrific thing in the world.
I read a quote somewhere that the Netanyahu guy, that his father said that, oh, he didn't like Arabs, right? And he didn't like the essence of Arabs. That's the same type of shit it seemed like that he would have said. It just makes me sad. And the biggest thing, it just breaks my heart. But yeah, some of that shit, it just hurts me. Think about how many children have been killed. How many kids have been killed over there?
I mean, the estimates, I think, have been so far, they're like undercounted. I think a lot more people than we initially thought are dying. The estimate was that 2/3 of the dead were women and children. But Gaza is 50% children.
Figures show that more than 6,000 women and 11,000 children were killed in Gaza by the Israeli military over the last 12 months.
I mean, this is way undercounted.
It seems like it to me, yeah.
For today, like as of right now, when it comes to Israel and Palestine, there's no parity between the two of them. It's not like, oh, these are two nation states around the same strength. Like Palestine isn't a nation state. They don't have a government.
Well, it was a halfway house of people, of Arabs.
Yes, exactly. Israel has all the power, all the leverage, all the chips. And if you're in a situation where everybody's saying, hey, you guys have been like at war for so long and we want peace. Well, who's supposed to make the first concession when one side has all the chips?
That's the
Obviously,
thing.
you need that side.
Don't push another bullying video at me unless that's going to be the first one that you cite. I don't understand how we would have media that would be like so anti-bullying and then this bullying is going on. And it's like, well, who's believing you?
It's only with Israel, and they intentionally do this where they conflate this thing. Where it's like, oh, if you criticize them, you hate Jewish people. But that's stupid.
It started becoming the boy that cried wolf because they would say that for everything.
If I say, I think what Israel's doing is wrong, and your response is, well, you're a bigot, it's like, no, your response should be, oh, I don't think what they're doing is wrong, and here's why. And then we could actually talk about it. But just to call someone like, oh, you're a Jew hater, it's just played out and tired.
Theo Von describes himself as someone that is not anti-Israel, but despite having this neutral stance, he said he can intuitively sense that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is inherently evil. Dave Smith agreed and described Netanyahu's actions as horrific and inexcusable. I was unaware of Netanyahu's father making such discriminatory comments about Arab people as Theo described. Theo correctly likened this to the prejudice Jewish people themselves faced during World War II. Like I said before, these two guys have a heart. People like this restore my faith in humanity. The numbers Theo showed to Dave in regards to civilian casualties involving women and children in Gaza are undercounted, as Dave said. So much so you could easily triple or quadruple the numbers that have been reported to get a more accurate representation of the death count. Dave quite rightly said that there is no equality between Israel and Palestine when it comes to military strength and international backing. This is why I take issue with the mainstream media, who are run by Israeli sympathizers, framing this genocide as a war when it's not. Dave stated that because of this imbalance of power, it is Israel that should be first to stop the violence and the oppression. And to be completely honest, this new supposed ceasefire deal that Israel has reluctantly accepted gives me no hope. Israel has previously rejected and broken many ceasefire deals in the last 15 months. What makes us think they will stick to this one, unless the US cuts off their funding? Theo Von also called out the fake virtue signalling of the mainstream media when he said he doesn't want to see another phony anti-bullying campaign from the Western press, when they condone and justify the ultimate form of bullying known to humankind today, which is the treatment of Palestinians by the Israelis. I like how both these guys debunked the weak accusation of anti-Semitism that is thrown around by Israel and their supporters when someone opposes Israel's disgusting war crimes. Standing against injustice is the right thing to do, and no group of people are exempt from criticism if they are harming their fellow human beings. Let's look at the next clip where Dave and Theo speak about the same pattern of oppression in Iraq at the hands of the US and Israel's involvement in that too.
According to the British Empire, our founding fathers were a bunch of terrorists, probably, right?
Oh, so, when you look back to American history, I mean, what we did to the Native Americans, sure, they had huge beef amongst each other, but they were also blatantly lied to and taken advantage of countless times by other people that had come in, by white settlers that had come in, or and by the Spanish as well. But yeah, you have to think how many Iraqi people who had nothing to do with 9/11 were affected by our military presence over there.
People don't like when you invade their country and destroy their homes and kill their relatives and stuff like that. Nobody in Iraq had anything to do with 9/11.
They must have been like, what the
The most powerful military in the history of the world invading and just wrecking the country, largely because Netanyahu wanted us to do it.
Did he really?
Netanyahu is a huge part of the war in Iraq.
Why do we keep supporting him?
Well, there were the neoconservatives, all of them fanatically pro-Israel. There's AIPAC, and there's the ADL and the Southern Poverty Law Center, and there are these organizations in the country. It is their business to ruin your life if you're against Israel, particularly if you're in politics and you're against Israel. There's also like things like blackmail operations. There's like Epstein, stuff like that. And then there's also evangelical Christians in this country fanatically support Israel as well. Israel has a very outsized influence on U.S. policy. When the war in Gaza first broke out and some reporter asked, well, you're all in on this war in Ukraine. You've already given them hundreds of billions of dollars, and now you're saying you're going to support Israel. Like, are you sure America can take on another war that we have to foot the bill for now? And he goes, this is the United States of America. Of course we can do it.
Who said that, Ricky Gervais?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
No, we can't. We don't have limitless funds. And none of these wars made my country better. In fact, they made it much, much worse. All we got to show for the war in Iraq is thousands of our bravest young boys dead, tens of thousands of them killing themselves in the wake of it, tens of thousands more injured and horribly just a shell of themselves.
And it may be anti-American for me to say it. I mean, the truth of probably closing your eyes at night and be like, well, what was I fighting for?
A lot of these guys, they come back and they're like, oh, I was straight up lied to. Like, I was lied. Oh, I was just a pawn in some rich guy's game. And that included me like doing all types of shit to people that is very hard for any civilized person to do.
Oh, your conscience can't. It's a teeter-totter.
Theo and Dave stated that under the current definition of extremism, the British Empire and the European colonisation of what we today call America are the epitome of acts of savage extremism on a mass scale. Both Theo and Dave agreed that this colonial mentality continued when the US invaded Iraq for no other reason than to destabilise the Middle East in order to aid the interests of Israel. Dave Smith also pointed out that Benjamin Netanyahu influenced America into wiping out close to 1 million Iraqi Muslims. Look, anyone who supports this evil swine of a man are themselves satanic. For around 4 decades, Netanyahu has been responsible for the deaths of millions of people, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, American, Arab, and even Israeli. I mean, this man is the devil personified. Theo, again, through his genuine inquisitiveness, expressed confusion as to why America keeps supporting this monster. Dave, in response, listed off the numerous powerful Zionist political entities that basically run America, as well as the various corruption and blackmail tactics Israel uses against US politicians, and even called out the sellout Christian Zionist crowd. Dave Smith also took aim at former US President Joe Biden for funding Israel's genocide of Palestinian people at the detriment of US civilians, and said this is just a continuation of American citizens being sacrificed for the benefit of Israel, just like they were doing during the invasion of Iraq. Theo also agreed and acknowledged that those US military personnel were duped into committing heinous war crimes that will stain their conscience for eternity. Let's wait and see if the new US President Donald Trump does things differently, or if, like all his predecessors, he too bows the knee to the evil Zionist entity that is Israel. Let's look at the last clip where Theo and Dave delve deep into a rabbit hole of the historic corruption on America and Israel's part in regards to their oppression of the Middle East.
It was in the 90s. I can't remember what year it was. They say we want to fight multiple wars in the Middle East and have multiple regime changes.
Wow.
And they actually said in the paper, they go, but it would be very challenging to get enough popular support to do something like this short of another Pearl Harbor style attack. So they literally say, we really kind of need an attack on America in order to work up enough support to go fight these wars. In 1996, there's a letter that was written by Richard Pearl and David Wormser. So 2 of these neoconservatives. And they wrote this letter. The letter is called A Clean Break, A New Strategy for Securing the Realm. And it's written to Benjamin Netanyahu, who in 1996 was the first year that he became prime minister. The neoconservatives were saying, hey, here's the new strategy. And Israel committed to what they call a peace process. They're like, this land that we know is not ours, that we've been occupying since 1967, we do have to give this back to you. Like, we have to give this to you, and we have to have a 2-state solution of some sense. We will do that, but there has to be a process that we go through. So, better than nothing, at least, right? Now, then Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister of Israel, was assassinated by a right-wing Israeli, by a Netanyahu supporter, for betraying his own country and talking. But Israel was still on the hook for promising to eventually give the Palestinians their own state. And the clean break memo, and it's a little bit coded, but it's basically like, listen, we got to get away from this peace process. And the idea of like giving the Palestinians their land, this threatens Israel's stability.
I could see them thinking that though, for sure.
Sure. The reason why there was this peace process is that the Yitzhak Rabin thinking was that, listen, you have the Arab world who hates Israel's guts over their treatment of the Palestinian people. And so you have to make peace with the Palestinians so that you can be friendly with the surrounding Arab world, so that they don't all hate you and you can coexist and you can be prosperous, right? Now, the clean break is essentially a break from that line of thinking. And they go, no. You don't need to make peace with the Palestinians so that you can then make peace with the broader Arab world. What you need to do is overthrow the regimes in the broader Arab world that are pissed off at you, and that way you won't have to ever make peace with the Palestinians. You'll never have to give them land, and these are our top neoconservatives who end up in the George W. Bush administration explicitly saying that this was their plan, and as they had mentioned in the clean break, explicitly for Israel. Like, it was to change the dynamic so that Israel, we would take out all of their enemies and put them in a situation where they never had to come through on the peace process. That's why, or at least a huge part of the reason why we fought a war in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, why we've backed Israel through all of these proxy wars. It's all about that. That does nothing but create disasters for us. Yeah.
You know, you start to get looked at the bad guy if you invite me to come help you, or if I have the bullets, you know, and you have me come along and fire the, even if you give me the orders or whatever, I'm still a murderer, you know?
Right.
I'm still complicit. A clean break, a new strategy for securing the realm, is a policy document prepared in 1996 by a study group led by Richard Pearl for Benjamin Netanyahu, then Prime Minister of Israel. Key points: abandoning the Oslo Accords and the concept of a land for peace, reestablishing the principle of preemption rather than retaliation.
So just to be clear, because again, they're saying these in kind of like, and this is how they talk about it, right? So it's all coded a little bit, but abandoning Oslo means the peace process. The concept of land for peace, meaning like this concept that the Palestinians deserve their land. Get rid of that weird concept. And then number two, think about how creepy that is. Reestablishing the principle of preemptive rather than retaliation. So in other words, we don't wait for you to attack us. We just start attacking you right away because we know you're going to. So essentially, like, giving up on the idea of like, oh, we were attacked and therefore we go to war. And instead, we'll just keep attacking you because we've decided you're going to attack us in the future. Okay, if that's your feeling, then fine. But then you don't get to cry these tears about, oh, October 7th was so horrible and they did this to us, because, hey, you're just playing the game of might makes right, and whoever can kill the other side can kill the other side.
Yeah.
Firstly, that was a very in-depth piece of investigative journalism. The political corruption Dave and Theo spoke about, though eye-opening, does not surprise me at all. In the information era that we live in today, the lid has been lifted on the old smoke and mirrors tactics that the US and Israel have used in the past to exert political control in the Middle East. And not surprisingly, Mr. Human Garbage himself, Benjamin Netanyahu, had his filthy claws in the mix of things. I know some naysayers will say Dave and Theo are indulging in conspiracy theories, but why would they? They have no dog in this fight. Talking about these things does not benefit them in the slightest. In fact, it does the opposite. They also provided documented evidence of the plots, plans, and false flag events that have been carried out over the last few decades in order to destabilize the Middle East and in turn strengthen Israel's position in that region, by hook or by crook. The bottom line, as Dave said, is that Israel doesn't want peace, they want chaos, and they want to justify their slaughter of millions of Arabs in order for them to steal more land in the same old European colonial fashion that has been going on for the last 500 years. And this would not be possible without the help of certain Arab leaders who, either out of cowardice or out of greed, are in cahoots with these wicked Zionists and are shamelessly selling out their own people to benefit themselves. What makes these supposed Muslim rulers any better than the American politicians that also bow to Israel and do their bidding? Nothing. Again, respect to Theo and Dave for having the guts to tell the truth, as well as the wits to not only understand the geopolitical game being played by the US and Israel, but also being able to vocalize it so eloquently. And all you moronic bigots spewing anti-Muslim hatred, accusing Muslims of doing all the atrocities that they are actually on the receiving end of, you're just useful idiots for bloodthirsty and money-hungry governments, pushing their agenda while you remain ignorant and poor, and they prosper from oppressing your fellow human beings. Thank you for watching. Make sure to join my free Telegram group via the link in the description, where we as Muslims can speak freely and without censorship about issues like this. And remember to like, subscribe, and become a channel member for access to exclusive content. Until next time, inshallah, Jazakallah khair.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.